So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. And we're going to have a short session, 20 minutes. It will probably be about 15, and then hopefully we'll have 5 minutes at the end to take any questions. So today I'm going to be talking to you about the importance of your well-being when working with vulnerable young people and children. So I'm just going to be showing you some slides and talking over them, and then again we can have a discussion at the end. So my name is Latoya. I'm representing I'm Standing Tall, and as I said, we'll be going through some slides, I'll talk, and then we'll have the discussion. So the first thing I wanted to just kind of bring up first is, what does your well-being mean to you? And it's just like a quick you reflecting. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just really helpful for you to have a concept to work with for this short session. So kind of just, if you want to jot down a few words or just hold what it means to you in your mind, and just hold that there as we go through each slide. So the first thing to remember is, when you're working with vulnerable students and young people, children, you're all human. You're human, you have emotions, you're going to have different attachment levels to different children that you work with, and also with your different colleagues that you're working with. You're going to be taking on their baggage, because empathy requires us to step into their shoes, but also you're carrying your own baggage, and it affects us in different ways, which we're going to look at in the next slide. And also, if you're interested in kind of the effects of empathy, there's a kind of an argument going on that too much empathy can make you unwell. And I've written a blog about it on my website, which I'll direct you to later. But coming back to yourself and your own baggage that you're carrying, you've got yourself in the middle. And then there's, if we look at it via systems theory, the different factors that are affecting you. You have micro, you have meso, and you have macro factors. So if we're talking about your micro factors, they are kind of the immediate things that affect you. So it might be your immediate family, it could be your parents, siblings, children, partner, even kind of really tight friends. So anything that happens between your relationship are affecting factors, but also anything that directly affects them that you carry the weight of. Then if we look into, I'm going to go back to macro, because macro, we're looking at social conditions, history, past experiences, things that are happening all over the world. And the reason why I've talked about macro is because actually we find out about these things through meso. So it might be that you go onto social media and you hear about a really awful event that's happened, or you hear about a child fatality, and you've got to carry that with you along with the things that you've got going on in micro, and work also falls into meso as well. So you've got all these different factors that are having a knock-on effect with each other and yourself, plus you've got all the baggage from work. Now I'm just going to show you two stats there. Now the stats in regards to mental health are quite disputed. So you've got some people that say 1 in 3 people suffer from mental health. You've got some that say 1 in 4, and some that say 1 in 6. Now the reason why I have picked these two is because 1 in 4 are said to experience some sort of mental health condition within a year, and 1 in 6 people by the end of the week will have experienced some sort of symptom of depression or anxiety. Now that's not to say that they have been officially diagnosed, but it means that they have identified, or they are going through some sort of symptom linked to it. And why is that relevant? Well, I found this quote on Twitter actually, and I just thought it was so relevant, and it explains the point that I'm trying to make. The expectation of being immersed in the pain, sadness, and suffering of people on a daily basis and not being affected is as unrealistic as being immersed in water and not getting wet. It is absolutely impossible for you to work with people that are really vulnerable. They're carrying a whole load of baggage. You're dealing with them, you're dealing with their family, and for you not to be affected by it, it's absolutely impossible. We're not robots, we're only human. So what I want you to think about are how does your body tell you? What symptoms can you recognize? So, for example, it might be illness, it might be tiredness, mood swings. You might be finding that you feel quite emotional. I know personally, when I've got a lot on and I get really stressed, then it's my neck and my back that start playing up. It might be anxieties that you're not used to having, and just generally feeling really overwhelmed. And this is the body's way of telling you you need to take a bit of a rain check. You need to put self-care as a priority. And research shows that actually when we're in these conditions of feeling really stressed and feeling really anxious, regardless of where the stress is coming from, we're not in a position to make sound decisions. When we're anxious, when we're rushed, some of the symptoms might be that we're struggling to sleep. If you don't have enough sleep, you can imagine how difficult it is to make a decision. Or maybe you're not feeling hungry, so therefore you're feeling irritable. And Robert Abelson, he explored hot and cold cognition. And he talks about hot cognition being that when you fall into being really emotionally driven and less rational. And then on the extreme of that, you've got cold cognition, which is when you're excessively critical and over analyzing anything. So you can fall into either of them. It might be that because you become really stressed, you find yourself having emotional outbursts, so therefore you fall into the hot cognition, or actually you begin to self-doubt yourself. So you think, oh, my work isn't good enough, they're always checking over it, and you become highly critical. So you're falling into cold. And both of these affect your decision making, and therefore they affect the work that you're delivering, even if you don't realize it at the time. So it brings me back to, how can you effectively help vulnerable young people and children to feel well if you aren't well yourself? Or how can you even help young people and young children to recognize the triggers of when they're unwell if you can't even do it yourself? And a logical question has a logical answer. You can't. Even if you're able to still function, it's not going to be to the best of your ability. If you're in a position where you're really well, you're going to be much better at your job, and it's going to be easier to get the child in a position where they are well. And if you are well and the child is well, that is when the magic happens. That's when you enjoy working with young people. You're able to move them from one stage to another stage. And children are really good at picking up on when you're not in the best position. And if you think back to why you applied for the type of job that you're in now, or why you ended up working in that field, that is kind of like the best point, when you were passionate, when you wanted to make a change. And that is the version of you that you want to be bringing into work every single day, the version of you that you want to be doing this direct work with young people and or their families. So I want you to take a moment to think about, what does well you look like? Because a lot of the time when we're talking about our well-being and our mental health, we look at the worst points, our triggers and our symptoms. And yes, that's really important. We do need to know what they look like. But if we don't have an end goal, or if we don't remember what good, positive, best version of ourselves looks like, then we've only got what we don't want to be, and we don't have where we want to be. So kind of think about, what does it look like? What does it feel like? This is what we're working towards. And it's important to remember that actually ill mental health it's on a spectrum. We move up and down depending on the situations that we encounter on a daily basis. And if we look at Monroe, she kind of talks about the perfect place to be is in warm cognition. She recognizes that there's hot and there's cold. And she talks about trying to get a balance, so that we're able to make a decision when we're not stressed. And if we recognize that we're stressed, that's fine, because we're human. But then we need to be able to take ourselves out of that situation and bring ourselves back, so that we're able to make the best decision possible. So really, it's about recognizing what symptoms and what triggers might you have. So it might be to do with deadlines at work, it might be to do with caseloads, it might be working with a particular colleague that maybe your dynamics are not great. but recognizing what those triggers are and recognizing your own symptoms. And also recognizing that mental health and well-being, it shouldn't be a taboo. Organizations should be fostering an open and supportive culture at work. Staff should be looking after each other. And also it's a two-pronged attack. So we are responsible for kind of recognizing our triggers and our symptoms, but also recognizing our triggers and symptoms for our support networks, our friends and our family, and looking at kind of putting things in place that can help you. So personally for yourself, it might be exploring mindfulness, it might be having a long bath, and also kind of pushing your organization to take a responsibility in looking after well-being. So it might be you need quality line management, or you need a positive workspace or a positive work atmosphere. It might be the line of work that you're doing, you require supervision, or some other sort of support. But it's recognizing, knowing what those triggers are, knowing the symptoms, being able to kind of say, look, I'm not feeling great right now. What do I need to do? Do I need to go and take myself away from my desk and have a proper lunch today as opposed to eating at the desk? Do I need to go and have a conversation with somebody else? Do I need to sound off some of these stresses that I'm having? Or do I need to go and request that I actually have a line management meeting where I can discuss my workload so somebody else can help me with that? So I've just got my details up on there because I'm aware that there's only about 6 minutes left. So hopefully you've got some questions and we can have a discussion. That's my email address, lmaynard@imstandingtall.org.uk. I think this presentation will also be available, so you can get the details there. And I'm on Twitter, and I'm on imstandingtall.org.uk.
Thank you so much, Latoya. That was really helpful. Some really good tips and things to think about. I'm sure a lot of the things that you said resonated with people that are on the call. It's so important to think about yourself, isn't it? And to think about your well-being. As you said, you're not going to be doing the best for the children that you work with otherwise. So it's really important we do, as an organisation, talk about that. Are there any questions? One of the things that we've done in the Cardiff office, Latoya, is usually about once a month we have a feeling fine cup of tea. So it doesn't sound like very much, but we make sure that everybody moves away from their computers and we go and have a cup of tea and a chat for 20 minutes. And
all the difference, though.
Yeah, what actually comes out of those chats is usually an issue that we can talk about and try and work out together. So even though it seems like quite straightforward and a bit simple, it's really helpful and supportive. So it sort of fits in with everything that you've been saying on the call. So it's we need to do it more.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's really good. And a lot of the time it's the small things. I've been in roles before whereby I've had an open door policy and said you can just pop in.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not officially a counsellor, but if you just want to come and speak to me, obviously my role is to safeguard young people, but you're taking on a lot of the work in regards to the disclosures and the referrals. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the mostly I've been based in schools, and a lot of the teachers have just said sometimes it's nice to be able to step out of the classroom.
Yeah.
Sit somewhere and be able to talk where I'm not going to be judged for a bit.
Yeah.
Like, where I'm not a teacher, I'm just a human.
Yeah. It's important that you maintain a sense of who you are, isn't it? And identity as well. Alison's on the call. She said, good practical advice and observations, thank you. And Jessica said, great presentation. My first thought about you mentioning well-being was feeling a sense of control. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it depends on, there's two extremes to it. I think understanding your well-being does link to having a sense of control, because you do need to be able to step in and pull yourself away from things. So I've been in situations where I'm in work mode, I want to get the work done, but also I've got a headache, my eyes are getting blurry, and it's kind of like, okay, I do need to finish this work, but is it going to be the best of my ability if I work through these conditions, or do I need to step away
Yeah,
Go
yeah,
and have a walk, have some water, do whatever I need to do and come back. And if it's a case of I realize that I'm not going to meet the deadline, then it's a conversation I'm going to need to have with somebody, because it's better to be able to work when you're feeling okay, because at the end of the day, you might meet that deadline, but now you're off work for a day or two, which means that you get caught up in a cycle of now you have to catch up on 2 days work, and everyone knows it's really horrible coming back to work when you've had the day off. It's sometimes it's easier just to work through the illness and be
that's
in.
right. Yeah, yeah. Alison's on the call. She's also said our training team have started half hour of cheery chinwag check-ins once a month via Skype. That's separate from our supervisions or more formal team meetings. So very similar to our feeling fine sort of
It sounds really good.
cup of tea. Yeah. Jessica said, great answer. Thank you. I found that really, really helpful. Would you be able to send me the slides as well?
Definitely.
That's great. Thanks. Now they're probably all thinking, I really need to look after myself, myself more.
It's true. And even little things like, if you can, a little treat once a month or so. It could be something small like treating yourself to a book,
Yeah,
just giving yourself some you time. It makes a massive difference.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That was brilliant. Thanks very much, Latoya.
No problem.
Alison, need to learn now how to create me time each day, however little. That's so true.
It, it
Thanks for your
really
time, Latoya. Really appreciate it.